You're all gonna suck.
What?
Okay. Hear me out on this one. So, Fixed is a movie I've been keeping an eye on ever since I heard its announcement back around 2018. I mean, a 2D animated theatrical adult buddy comedy coming from Genndy Tartakovsky? That sounds like the type of project that's made to get cancelled, rest in peace theatrical Popeye movie. So when I kept hearing it was still going forward year after year with subsequent updates, I started wondering, wait, is this actually gonna come out? Is there really gonna be a major studio releasing an R-rated, traditionally animated film about a dog who's about to get neutered? This doesn't feel like reality. But then, lo and behold, not only does Netflix pick it up for a streaming deal, which, yeah, not quite as cool as theatrical, though it makes sense, but they've also actually released a trailer, and... Hey, what's that sound? What the fuck did I just watch?
Normie corrupting Goy.
No, what the fuck?
Who asked for this
Y'all
shit?
really paid some poor bastard to animate a dog's puckered asshole.
It's honestly sad.
Who the fuck put a gun to Genndy's head and forced him to make this abomination?
It seems like it's Sausage Party, but trying to appeal to zoophiles.
Ah, well... This reaction's been interesting. Yeah, alright, so chances are, if you know anything about this film, it's probably along the lines of people saying it looks like the worst thing that's ever existed and ever will exist until the sun collapses in on itself. And if the clips I showed you at the start of this were anything to go by, the trailer is, very bad. There's not really any two ways about it. The trailer for this is just a terrible way of selling the thing to most people, seeing as the only things it really shows is that there's swearing, there's balls, and there's swearing mixed with jokes about, we're gonna lick your balls. You know, I immediately heard comparisons to Big Mouth, Sausage Party, Vivzy Pop, all the things you'd expect from stuff that's animated and seems like it's trying too hard to be provocative or edgy. And honestly, if anything, I feel like the reaction's only gotten more batshit to the point there's only really two stances you can take if you want to talk about this. Either you've already written it off as garbage, Genndy fell off, the people defending it are huffing pure copium, or since the film is a 2D adult animated Genndy film, which is pretty much all the buzzwords you need to get film Twitter riled up if you ever decide to criticize it, it means that the people turned off by it have no right to complain and are just closed-minded, whiny trend chasers. Now, where do I stand in all this? Well, like I said, I also think the trailer is dog shit, no pun intended, but I didn't want to judge it too harshly just because Netflix has done this kind of terrible marketing before with things that have an edge. Anyone remember Q-Force? Yeah, that's kind of a rhetorical question, but that might actually be genuine. Does anyone remember Q-Force? That one perfectly okay show that everyone dragged for having what seemed like a really stereotypical trailer, only for it to be just fine? That was my mindset looking at Fixed. I mean, it's not like I was convinced it'd be good, even I'd have to stretch to be that much of a contrarian, but I was at least cautiously optimistic, knowing this is basically just a tactic from Netflix to drum up publicity, which whether you intended it or not, most of you absolutely fell for if that was their goal. Although I will admit, I was still kind of shocked at just how big the reaction was when there's been info coming out about this movie for years. Like, one of the main images that's been used to talk about it is a still image of the main dog Bull with a visible asshole and censored balls. There was never any hiding that this was going to be a raunchy film that's in your face. And I'm not saying that to excuse the trailer or anything, because again, it sucks, it's bad. I'm just saying this was never an aspect that was hidden. And considering the first trailer barely even shows you what the film's about so it can shove in as much adult shit as possible, I thought it was obvious this was just a bunch of stitched together highlights, or I guess lowlights depending on who you're asking, and that there had to be something more. Like, I doubt it was just going to be 90 minutes of Bull humping an old woman's leg and saying, "Fuck me." Although now that I'm saying that out loud, that does sound kind of funny just in an ironic way, but I did think there was more to it than met the eye, especially when you know about all the hoops Genndy's gone through just to get it made. I mean, I've heard some people be like, "Wow, who forced Genndy to make this?" or "Can't believe they're wasting Genndy's talent." But if you know anything about the production, it's actually been a thing for a while now that Genndy's really wanted to make this movie. He's been downright adamant about it for over a decade now. And while I don't want to do the meat writing thing of saying Genndy's a god of animation who can do no wrong, I watched Hotel Transylvania 3, it was kind of mid, but he has done a lot of both kid and adult material before that shows he knows how to tell mature stories, create good narratives, and even if it doesn't turn out amazingly, he never phones in anything he's working on. So if he's gonna spend almost 17 years trying to get something made, I don't think it's safe to assume he's just gonna do the animated equivalent of giving us the middle finger for the whole runtime. He's not someone like Seth Rogen who just thinks the idea of cartoon character swearing is the greatest thing on earth. Nah, he's an actual animator who personally penned the script himself, and in interviews, he's always said the main intent was to capture the vibe of his friend group from high school, only adding the balls hook after getting told his original pitch was a little too weak. And time after time, looking at the interviews that he's done, one of the main themes that I picked up on is he really wants people to know there's more than just balls, which I can understand given that if it's a raunchy adult comedy, a lot of people are naturally gonna assume it doesn't have anything else to offer, and Netflix isn't really helping with that. But hey, this is all just conjecture. There's really nothing I can do but wonder until it actually releases. Or is there? Alright, full transparency, to make a long story short, I know a guy who was given an early screener's pass of the movie, so I actually got to see this thing over a week before anyone else did. Yes, I know, I'm better than you. For real though, it's been killing me not to say anything since I've had thoughts I wanted to share for a while now, but by the time this video releases, the film's gonna be out on streaming, so I can get ahead of the curve and be the first one to say that, I liked it. Not that it's my favorite thing from Genndy, not by a long shot, and there's also definitely some roughness here just because, as Genndy himself admitted, he's never done something in this style before, but it still definitely feels like something he made rather than like Seth Rogen or Vibsy Pop, which is probably the first thing I want to address here since I've heard this compared to those two for fucking ever now, and it kinda annoys me since I don't see them as the same thing at all. Of course, I understand the comparison based on the trailer. Most of Sausage Party's jokes are just, man, I can't believe this cartoon character did that adult thing. Meanwhile, Vibsy Pop shows are always shoving in sex puns to feel more adult, both of which come across in Fixed trailer with all the haha swearing, haha dog balls, haha fucking moments it has. But honestly, I never felt insulted by Fixed in the same way as those other two. Yeah, that's right, I felt less offended by the jokes of a film that starts with a dog humping an old woman's thigh than I did by Sausage Party or Vibsy Pop. The bar is on the floor. And I mean that sincerely, since there are a couple things Fixed does with its comedy that set it apart for me. Like, first of all, it's never so reliant on sex jokes that it can't do other things. And when I say that, I'm not trying to imply that Has Been Hotel and Sausage Party only have sex jokes, but by comparison, it's clear there's way more reliance on them than in Fixed, which does indeed have some jokes related to balls and sex, and about 2/3 of the time, I'm not gonna lie, I don't find them very funny, if at all, but that was never too much of an issue for me, since those kinds of jokes actually make up a surprisingly small amount of the film, mostly being concentrated at the start and around the climax. Again, no pun intended. You know, if you take the sex jokes out of Sausage Party, you've barely even got a movie, but if you take them out of Fixed, there's still plenty of jokes based on timing, banter, character quirks, visual gags, and expressions. It's not nearly as much of a one-trick pony, and it doesn't feel like it's always trying to leave you gasping. I swear I'm not trying to make these puns, they just keep happening. In fact, a lot of the time, in between all the hecticness of Bull and his crew going around, trying to make the best of his last night with balls, there's actually a bunch of scenes that give room for the cast to breathe and just shoot the breeze with each other, which I personally never minded since, like Genndy was saying, it's mainly a character-focused comedy, and I thought the characters were fun to watch since they have pretty good chemistry. I mean, I didn't always laugh at what they were saying, can you believe it? But I was also never bored, since on top of the pacing being pretty good in this, legit there's almost never a dull moment, I just liked watching the cast for all their little traits and dynamics, which actually brings me to my second reason for not minding the humor. It all felt really natural for the characters and the mood the film was setting. See, one of the things I really hate about how something like Has Been Hotel does adult humor, quote unquote, is that despite doing it so often, it almost never comes off even slightly organic. Like, I know the if it was written by Vibsy Pop meme has kind of been done to death at this point, but there's a reason my name is Kane, I am your bitch. It's so fucking funny, because it perfectly encapsulates how so often it feels like characters are given extra profanity or mention something naughty purely because mentioning something naughty or saying the no-no word makes it funnier. Whereas in Fixed, when they decide to swear or mention whatever, it's almost never to enhance a joke, it's just the way the characters talk. Like when I hear the character Adam say fuck over and over again in a dude bro rocker voice, I know the intent is that I'm supposed to find it funnier because he said fuck. Whereas in Fixed, when I hear a character like Rocco say fuck, something he does fairly frequently, I never roll my eyes since the reason he's saying it is because that's what his character would say. There's never an expectation that saying a swear should make you laugh, it's just there to help characterize the person using it. And if the swear does contribute to the joke, it's usually pretty important context. For example, in one scene, this guy, Sterling, says Bull's love interest Honey could win Best Bitch at their next dog show. Now, if this were a Vibsy Pop show, the joke would probably be something like when Adam says Vaggy's name means vagina, which pretty much just amounts to ha, vagina. That is her name. Adam is such a pervert. Funny. But instead, in Fixed, the joke is, oh, Bull misconceives what the intent of Sterling's comment was, knowing he's a pompous, arrogant douche, and as a non-show dog who wouldn't get that bitch is a proper term for a female dog, thinks he's insulting Honey. And look, whether you like the joke or not, that's up to you, but there's no denying that one is an actual joke with, like, setup and payoff, while the other is just saying vagina because vagina. It doesn't have any of the same thought or character basis the Fixed joke does. Which, hey, speaking of character, that's the last main thing that makes Fixed sex humor more bearable for me. Since the film having jokes or scenes that focus on sex and balls is meant to be a way of underscoring Bull's character arc of being insecure about losing his, partially because of the expectations other dogs make for him. Yeah, being that this is a comedy about a dog losing his balls, you'd probably think the main character's goal is something like, man, I'm so horny and I need to do it before I lose these, oh no. But Bull isn't really chasing tail at all in this, since from the start he only wants Honey, so his arc has pretty much nothing to do with getting laid made, and more so has to do with him learning his balls aren't what make him who he is. You know, he views his balls sort of like how people do, as a source of strength, and something that sets him apart from other dogs who've already been neutered. So to him, losing them means he'll never have the courage to ask out Honey or ever be good enough for her, which of course is a mindset that inevitably leads to him sort of pushing her away until he realizes it's his choices that make the difference. Like, I'm not gonna go all serious media analyst on you for the scenes where his balls are front and center, but aside from the ones that are more explicitly about his anxiety with losing them, I feel like us getting to see his balls as often as we do does help accentuate how much he associates his being with them, to the point that after a while, same as him, it's kinda hard to think of him without them, as weird as that sounds. But I think that does really speak to another positive about this movie, which is that it not only has more to it than just balls, it's got effort put into giving active growth for multiple characters who are actually likable enough for us to want them to succeed, and sometimes it even relates back to the jokes they're telling. I mean, I've already mentioned Bull, but there's also one given to the little beagle Lucky. You know, the "we're gonna lick your balls" dog from the trailer? Yeah, guess what? That little moment is actually one of multiple hints at his own problems centered around suppressing his true self and having a difficult time loving himself because of it. Don't you feel stupid, you fucking idiot? Of course, it's not the most complex thing in the world, but the fact there's time given to exploring this facet of him in a couple serious scenes is way more than most American adult animated films I've seen have ever done. And that goes double for Honey and Bull's relationship, which is legitimately sweet and wholesome, and in the end comes back around to being most of the film's heart since they genuinely love each other. The other part's obviously coming from Bull's pack, who are also super supportive and help each other out whenever possible, which might be the biggest difference this has from other raunchy, edgy, adult animated movies like Sausage Party. It's got sincerity. Like, if you watch Sausage Party, there's hardly any attempts at earnest connections or heartfelt moments, since the whole thing is coated in this thick layer of sarcastic irony, like, whoa, isn't this so vulgar/crazy? And hey, I'm not gonna say Fix doesn't at least have a couple moments that are like that. It does. Oh god, it does. And those are honestly some of the moments I like the least in this, but overall, it clearly knows when to take the character's conflicts and worries seriously, and the fact it could do that helped me get invested in a way I never could with Sausage Party. I mean, you wanna know what I think the biggest hindrance for a movie like that was from being a legitimate game changer for adult animation? It hardly ever lets itself be more than a novelty. It's not interested in telling a fun story that happens to be adult, it wants to tell a story where the whole plot is that it's adult as a way of making fun of how cartoons shouldn't be that way. It doesn't fight back against the standard with real storytelling, it just reinforces it. And that's something Fixed will always have over it. Since some people will just look at it and see a carbon copy, they'll assume it doesn't do anything worthy of praise for pushing boundaries that Sausage Party didn't do almost a decade ago, but it separates itself by being an honest-to-God adult movie that simply uses animation as its preferred format. The humor doesn't come purely from the fact it's adult and animated, it just is. And it's some good-ass animation, too. Animation that shows the people making it were passionate and wanted to give the thing a specific vibe that only animation could accomplish. Like, you can say Genndy was wasting his talent on this if you want, that he should have put his efforts somewhere else and this is a sign he's fallen off, but he decided to make this because he actually wanted to push animation forward. Sure, a raunchy buddy comedy might not be your personal cup of tea, and I'll admit it doesn't always land, but it has merit in the exact same way Genndy pushed silent adult animation forward with Primal or cartoony 3D animation forward with Hotel Transylvania. My point is, the guy likes to experiment in what ways he pushes boundaries, and if he's gonna use the accessibility of a raunchy adult animal movie to show people the merits of adult animation, I'm here for it. Personally, I hope the movie does well despite what public reception's been like, since, as Genndy said, it could open the door for him to keep making movies that experiment with more adult concepts, and frankly, I'd like to see that, so, I am no longer asking. For real though, at the least, if you're interested, I think you should give Fixed a chance. It's undeniably gross and won't be for everyone, but it's got great animation, some fun dynamics, genuine heart, diverse jokes, and ambition, which for me is all I could ask for. Oh, and to the people saying this movie is made for and or by zoophiles, you're fucking stupid.